It's never going to be a perfect world. I don't expect it to be. But that is why I want to look at these things and say, all right, where do we maneuver? Because we can't control this stuff. Whether you agree with it or disagree with it, we can't control it. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Commonwealth Flipper. I've got a topic that I think people have overlooked. And it's something I think is going to be far more significant than people will give it credit for. And it's something not just happening now that's already affected eBay sellers, some in a negative way, but most of us in a positive way, but it's going to continue to impact us. All right, this is a topic, I think this is really important. We've looked at some short-term stuff. A few videos back, we looked at the postal system and their increases in shipping, which are upon us at this point. And then we looked at some medium range type stuff. We've talked about both the medium range and the short-term effects of AI, which we're going to continue to talk about every once in a while in here because it relates to resellers. It relates to me and you. I got to turn that fan off back there, but I started yapping. Now we're going to look at some more medium and long range things that are going to affect resellers. I like to look at trends. This is what I did as a history teacher in the particular class that I taught. It was continuity and changes over time, and that was my favorite. And if you can not predict the future but look into the future, you can capitalize on what's coming. Just got these in here. Battlestar Galactica. There's 3 different ones. This is the right one, I believe. It's Galoob. Look at all those brand names. Hasbro, Galoob, Universal, Micro Machines, and this one sold for $20.66 plus shipping. All right, we're gonna look at 3 things today, and there will be some people, whenever I do these videos, I get unsubscribers. I'm perfectly okay with that at this point. I don't really care anymore. It's, look, we're adults here. If we can't, put our political opinions aside for a minute to discuss something in a relevant way that affects resellers, both in a positive and a negative way. In this case, I'm going to talk about it in a fairly positive light for most resellers. There are some resellers out there who will absolutely hate some of the stuff that they know is coming. Those people who will hate it probably already know about it and already hate it because they've seen what's going on already and it's hurting their business. For the rest of us, long term, I think these changes are a big, big plus. I will give one caveat before I jump into it. The caveat is the long term of this, it's a little cloudy. But I think the short term, a lot of resellers I've heard asking for these type of things for a long time, and I can understand it. And I'll go through a series of 3 different things and tie them all together because they're all related. But I'm gonna do it after this bag right here. This is a sweet bag. I saw this one, I'm like, oh, I am grabbing that. That's an Oakley, like a tactical bag. Beautiful condition as well, a little dust on the back, but it's in great condition. And I knew it would be a moneymaker. I don't remember what I paid for it. But when I got home, it was a bigger moneymaker than I thought. This Oakley bag, tactical field gear bag, sold for 150 bucks, used, plus shipping. I guess I'll tell you the 3 things. The permanent end of de minimis, that's the biggest topic. That's the umbrella that everything sits under. Then we'll get into the outrageously cheap shipping that you'll see coming. Remember the e-packets and all that stuff from China and the changes that you've already seen. You've already seen them. But then the permanent changes, the codified changes that are to come and not just affect Chinese goods, but goods from all kinds of different countries and resellers from different countries. And last but not least, we're going to look at the effects on the sourcing market using this, because we're going to be talking about the reselling market for the top 2 and then look at the sourcing market for the bottom one, which you'll get it when I talk about it. I'm sure there will be some folks who cannot control themselves in the comments, and that's kind of to be expected if you love the current president or if you loathe the current president. That's not what this is about. We're really trying to look at things. It's like I did a Facebook post the other day just as an alert to people, just like, hey, July 13th, the postal rates are going up. Make sure you got everything straight if you need to do that. And make sure you're starting to change your listings if you need to do that. Unless you do free shipping, you might need to change that too, because it's eating up a bigger percentage and et cetera, et cetera. And boy, it just turned into a political fiasco right off the bat. All it was a little bit of a heads up. Of course, we did that over here last week, but Here we go. Empire Strikes Back. I'm gonna make sure I get the right one. Set 3,600 out of 49,000. I have 2 of these. Let me look. I don't think I have it. I have to look at a picture. All right, it is the other one. I think they're identical, but they have different numbers on them, so I gotta make sure I send them the right one. This is that one. That's why we couldn't do a multi-quantity listing on this. This was part of the, well, I'll make some more people mad here, but I have a reason now. There's this one right here, these metallic cards. They're kind of cool, actually, from Star Wars. Empire Strikes Back. I'm not going to pull them out. You get the idea, but that came from that Filipino flip, which I was told by quite a few people, and I guess I knew this, didn't think about it, that the last part of that was derogatory. And then I had 4 different Filipino folks. We've got a lot of Filipino folks who watch on, these things air over on Facebook much later. And they sent me messages, and they're like, oh, I don't even know what they're talking about, and whatever. I'm like, yeah, well, it is a derogatory. They're like, just leave it. We knew what you meant. I'm like, okay, so we're leaving it. I did, however, change this, because it was on my other sheet over here, and then I throw those sheets away from time to time because they get too bulky on my clipboard. And I'm like, I'm going to throw that away someday. So I transferred this over. This flip, which you have not seen on the Picker channel yet, but you will see it soon. We're already up to $860 back out of the 1,000, and that's after minusing, you know, fees and everything. Today, a lot of this stuff, some of these smaller boxes, were loose cards from that lot, and we're going to be selling off a bunch of stuff, keeping track of it for a reason that I'm not going to talk about yet. And this is what we used to do, old school style anyways. This one right here is, I'm showing you this now because this came from that sale. So for $14.95 plus shipping. So now we are at $872. By the way, look at these 2 guys sent me this right here, Bodega Finds Ginger Card Kingdom. They sell around Debit Cards, which is where I'm going to be selling a lot of this stuff off. Not all of it, and some of it we're going to be giving it away. It's going to be fun, but that's a different story for a different day. Let's get into this topic. De minimis is, it's Latin, right? So very small, insignificant. All right, I looked it up. I cheated. I was right. Too small to be significant. This is something that has been going on for quite a while, and with the whole tariff talk and all the stuff that's been going on, I think if I've got this straight, and I didn't go down and do a bunch of research, I just pay attention to this stuff to look at trends as they move forward. And there's trends that have led up to this, and we'll get to that at the end. What's been going on here is that items under $800 have avoided any tariff. And so what you've seen is when you have those rules, this is in the past, so this is not, this is not anything new. What's new is the changes to the old system. Anything under $800 coming in, say, from China, because most everything comes in from China, there hasn't been this tariff on there until the executive actions probably in May or something like that. I don't remember. It's been not that long ago. And the main target, of course, was China, Hong Kong, which is in China, but not China, whatever. Long story. By the way, if you're already getting riled up, don't. Just kind of soak this in a little bit and think about it. Ignore that you know any political people, no matter what your political persuasion is. And I think this will give you a long-term outlook and looking at trends that will be like, this will be interesting to see what unfolds. So I'm going to read something to you here. These things were executive orders, different things like this, but now it is codified into law. And that's where it really makes a bigger difference. And it makes a difference for resellers who tend to source in certain ways, or resellers who are outside of this country, that are going to have some negative effects. There's no doubt. So I'm not minimizing that, no pun intended. I'm just kind of stating that for the domestic seller in the United States, there's going to be some benefits here. Some we've already seen. I'll give you an example of something I used to do on eBay that I don't do anymore. And de minimis exemption slated to end in 2027. Now, that's not to say that these executive orders and all this stuff aren't happening now, haven't already happened. It's just going to be codified into law and would require a law being changed in order to stop this at this point. Commercial use of the trade tool allowing low-cost imports to avoid duties, tariffs, will be repealed as part of an expansive bill that, it's been signed into law. This was published July 4th. So for those of you who don't know what the exemption is, I've told you that it's going away, but we're going to talk about exactly what it is, what the ramifications are for some folks in some ways in a positive light. I gotta grab something out here. Y'all, Jess is back. Jess is back, so my mess will go down. I tried while you were gone, Jess. I tried. I worked really hard. I gotta get this right here. So let me put this here, and I think I can get it with one hand. I'm not sure. Panasonic, I'll just tell them out here and then I'll put the camera away. Panasonic Whisper Choice Auto. Jess is working on live shows, and I'm excited about it. This thing right here was at a sale, and they told me it was there. Like, you might want to get this. I'm like, okay. So for 140 plus shipping. Side note here. This was at a sale where, you know, everybody says, don't let people know you're a reseller or whatever. I told them right off the bat. I could just see what was there and what they had, and probably had more. He said he just, I'm like, I'm a reseller. And he's pointing out stuff like crazy. You might want this, you might want this. And this was one of those things that I didn't see that he brought out. Look, No Name came in. So I would say that it is probably a net plus to tell people. I understand people who don't want to, but depending on the situation, some situations definitely a net plus. That was a good sale. All right, the de minimis exemption, which I've already said it, I guess I'll say it again. That's items under $800 are exempt. In other words, big shipments of stuff are not going to be exempt, but the smaller things coming in were going to be exempt. And, you know, it's pretty not cost effective to be doing that kind of thing on every single item. However, this was done for other reasons. And a lot of you understand this. It's stuff we've been talking about for years. And I'll make some allusions to it here in a little bit, but I don't want to get in the weeds too much. People already get upset. So, as part of the package introduced, the U.S. will repeal the exemption, allowing imports under $800 to enter the country duty and tax-free. Effective July 1st, 2027, exemptions will remain in place for eligible items brought during travel and bona fide gifts from foreign citizens to the U.S. residents. The bill also establishes a civil penalty, blah, 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 and it goes into some weeds here. The move builds upon the current administration's efforts to restrict the de minimis exemption, which lawmakers and customs officials have scrutinized in recent years due to contraband entering the United States via low-cost packages. Earlier this year, the White House removed the exemptions for imports from China and Hong Kong and announced its plan to end the de minimis for other countries once systems are in place to collect duty revenues. There's the key. The systems have to be in place right now. You could say, all right, this is, you know, the threats, the taking away, whatever. This is not going to affect, say, Canadian sellers right off the bat unless these things keep going back and forth. But it is now codified into law that it is going to, no matter what, essentially, unless they choose to not enforce these things in law, which is not always the case. We know that. Although it does happen, right? The IRS didn't enforce what actually was on the books. They tiered it in. The vast majority of the de minimis volume entering the United States originated from China prior to the May 2nd ban, making 76% of shipments in Customs and Border Protection's 2024 fiscal year. A lot of it's, we know this, right? We know this where the stuff's coming from. The full repeal exemption in 2 years would expose low-cost shipments from Canada. There's where the sticking point is, right? So when we have all these things going over to Europe, for instance, you know, we could make a lot more sales into Europe if we didn't have all of these tariffs, tax, and all these things going into Europe. And eBay has taken that all of that off of our plates by having their system, and they handle all that stuff. But it is adding massive cost to our goods that are going over there. I'm talking about eBay sellers here. Can I take a break from this for just a second to acknowledge a stupid mistake I made? The other day I said I like to keep my shipping mistakes, you know, confusing orders, to like 1 a year. I made 2 last week. I shipped the wrong, this was the worst of all of them. This is how much I've got on my mind. I got 2 major things on my plate right now. One of them you'll hear about in the future, but I've been doing research and trying to figure out things, and we'll get to it eventually. But I've made so many mistakes lately, and 2 in shipping in the same week. I shipped an LP out to this guy instead of a CD packet, like a big dummy. And both of these people were very nice and gracious, by the way. And we're going to get it all straightened out. But I have to ship this off to Bruce. I can't remember what it sold for, like $44 and something. And I sent him a $20 record instead, like a dummy. So Bruce, if you're, I don't think you were a viewer, but if you're out there, I'm sorry. It's headed your way. And I just called him Bruce. And his name is not Bruce. I'm just talking about Bruce Springsteen CDs. I have lost my mind. All right, some of you longtime eBay seller, well, I guess it's not that old, would remember the times, you don't see this as much anymore or at all, depending on situations, but where you would be selling an item and you would see that that item is coming from China, and it is coming to China at a sold cost that is under what it would cost you to ship it 10 miles away. And for years, I've heard eBay sellers complain about this. How could this be fair? How could an item come from China and get here? I'll give you an example of something I'm talking about. I used to coach baseball, of course, and one thing I used to do, let me tell you about this item here. This one sold, this one I thought would go for more money than this because I paid $10 for it. And it did not, but it did sell fairly quickly, just under 30 bucks. So I'm still making money, plus shipping. So like I said, I was a baseball coach, and my oldest boy, when he was like younger than Turner, there was a big phase. Uh-oh, Poncho's doing his thing again. I gotta kick you out of here if you're gonna do that, bud. There was quite a big fad in baseball where they would have these braided necklaces, these thick like cloth necklaces, and the kids would all wear them. Jacob would go to these tournaments and stuff, and he'd want them. I'm like, man, they want $15. What are these going for on eBay? And I would go on there and I would routinely buy them. And I started to buy tons of them in certain colors, especially the colors of the school I coached at, because we would do these little baseball clinics for young kids, and we would give them each one because I could get them for 99 cents free shipping from China. I'm like, what is this? How is this even possible? This is craziness. Well, you can't get them like that anymore. So there's the e-packet, if you've heard of that. There's basically two things that made that possible. Let me just read this so it keeps me on track and not telling stories. I will just say that those necklaces now, they're 10 times the price, essentially what they used to be. I used to go on and get them on auction for 99 cents. I'm like, this is ridiculous. And I wanted to figure out why, and this is why. E-packet shipping, often used for items from China and Hong Kong or on platforms like eBay, involves combination of factors that result in seemingly low shipping costs. Seemingly. There was, see, I'm going to get off on a tangent anyways. And some people disagree with this, but I just don't see how you can. You tend to get less of what you tax and more of what you subsidize. And this is kind of what's going on here. While not a direct subsidy, it's a system where the United States Postal Service, China Post, and sometimes eBay have negotiated agreements that led to lower rates for small, light packages. This is achieved through bulk pricing and streamlined processes, effectively making shipping from China to the U.S. cheaper than domestic shipping for similar items, which is ridiculous. It can't possibly be, right? By the way, if I recall, that agreement was in 2011, which is about the time frame I'm talking about, where I would get on there and it's like, what's going on? This is craziness. A lot of you remember back those days when that started to happen, and then we just kind of like, oh, well, you can't buy these items because they're being manufactured here, new, sent directly. You can't compete with it, right? Which is going to bring us to the last point. And there's a second part of this here, subsidized rates. The Chinese government provides, so on top of this agreement that allowed these things to occur, the Chinese government provides subsidies for shipping on top of this to those companies in China because they're losing money. You can't get that thing shipped to the United States under any circumstances, no matter what the arrangement was, for 99 cents and make a profit. So the Chinese government provided subsidies for shipping, particularly for small packages, enabling sellers to offer low or even free shipping. Okay? Sellers, that means in China sellers. Now, there's a lot of, people who are selling Chinese goods who have Chinese companies who are not Chinese or work with Chinese companies. I'm not going to get into all that rigmarole, but you kind of get the point here. And so why would the government of China subsidize these things at a loss? It was a way to completely strip away the manufacturing bases in different places and just completely dominate a market. And then that stuff slowly started to go away once they cornered the market, I guess. They didn't really corner it. I don't like that term, but you get the point. America's a very different place. We don't even, we won't even subsidize our own post office for domestic shipping, which I'm not arguing for, by the way. I'm not arguing against it either. I know there's a whole argument out there for that, but which last time I did that video, people get heated. I'm trying to avoid that. My point is that we are paying these tariffs, taxes, whatever, to ship our goods, singular good items off of a platform like eBay to different places around the world, and they weren't And on top of that, where they were being subsidized by their own government in order to do that, to strip the markets. Any rate, long story. I think you're grasping it. My teaching skills have waned. But I think you get the point. That's all being done away with. It's going to be done away with. So what are the implications? I would start with this for sellers like us. There will be less competition from outside foreign sources. Now, will that... I'm going to have to give my own little political hopes, I guess I should say, in here. And you don't have to agree with me, but it kind of makes sense in this talk here. What are the consequences of that? I think domestic sellers will have less international competition. Let's put it that way. Will that raise the prices on certain goods? Yes, because they're no longer being subsidized by this triangulation and the Chinese government. My hope is, like I said, that ultimately this will result in the loosening of some of these tariffs and taxes and all these things that are going on. But I have my doubts in most places, I gotta be honest with you, because I'd prefer things to be free and fair, right? But that'll trigger some people. Caboodles. This one is new, but it's missing the tag. It does have a little plastic thing. 1995 plus shipping. Meaning I don't want to be at an economic disadvantage because I'm competing against the subsidies of the Chinese government. If we make arrangements with different postal systems and stuff like that, that's one thing. But to add that on top of it in a market that already has ridiculously low labor costs, it's very difficult. But at the same time, you know, I would love for countries in Europe to eliminate so much of the red tape and the tariffs and the VAT taxes and all the things that make it so difficult for us to sell to them. It's never going to be a perfect world. I don't expect it to be. But that is why I want to look at these things and say, all right, where do we maneuver? Because we can't control this stuff. Whether you agree with it or disagree with it, we can't control it. And I think there's an opening, at least in the short term. Because these things don't happen quickly, right? That stuff was happening for years and years. You go back decades in order to move the manufacturing base outside of this country. It's not like it's going to reappear overnight. People are still going to want goods, and these things are going to be in place. And I think we are in a perfect place to benefit from that. Whether you like it or not, we're in a good place. I had to go run a couple errands, but I'm back, so trying to get my train of thought back. So who does this affect? If I think this is going to affect us in a positive way, at least in the, I don't want to say short term, because I really see it affecting us in a positive way for quite a while. Who knows what the ultimate ramifications of this are going to be. But let me just read this part, and this might give you a little bit more insight into who would not benefit from this and how things may change. There's a lot of folks out there you're listening to right now, and your reselling model you already know is hurting because of this. Especially folks that might be doing kind of their own branding of merchandise. That's a kind of a dumb way to say it, but you get the point. E-commerce companies like Shein and Temu, who have historically benefited from this exemption, they've grown because of this exemption. I wouldn't even say they benefited from it. They actually exist because of it, which allows them to ship products made internationally direct to U.S. consumers. You buy it, gets sent directly from China to you, no middleman at all. Direct to U.S. consumers without facing added duties. Because of that, because that de minimis exemption existed, that's when that stuff started, because it's not more efficient to do one-offs. It is way less efficient, but because it avoids those type of implications, it becomes more profitable, let's say. That's why Temu and Shein and all that stuff, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, I don't buy that stuff, but you get the point. All right, let me keep reading here. Direct to U.S. consumers without facing added duties. Some experts say, quote unquote, some experts say de minimis reliant supply chains will shift to more traditional bulk shipping models, which is the way it used to be, of course, or expanded U.S. fulfillment operations due to policy changes. So this is where you've seen the biggest difference, right? There will probably be more middlemen in a different sense that there are middlemen now. And there will have to be a restructuring of things. And who knows where this thing is going to lead. But I can tell you right now that who's in bad shape, you know, if you're over there on TikTok Shop selling stuff direct to consumer from, that stuff's already started to shift, by the way. If you're doing that, you know, it's coming directly from China, that's going to be far more expensive than it was. If there's other things that are taking place, which is to create U.S. fulfillment sites. Some of that's already all in place, and you're still paying that bulk. They're still paying it because it's above the de minimis number, but they'd have to pay it below, so you might as well do it in bulk and then have U.S. operations sell it. It's this whole different game that is going to be played. And I think for us, in some ways, it reduces competition. Used clothing, for instance, that could be a place that benefits all kinds of different places. You've seen all the Chinese essentially knock off video games and stuff like that. There's definite pluses here in this system for a lot of us. Now, for a lot of us who sell this kind of stuff, there may be long-term ramifications that aren't necessarily positive, but in the short term, I think this is a big deal. I think this is even a bigger deal than the 1099K or the postal increases. I just realized because I saw a viewer sale, I'm like, I thought I had 2 viewer sales. I skipped one. So Paul, hopefully you haven't left already. He bought the, or she, I'm assuming it says Paul, but you never know. It's a caboodles bag. Maybe you bought it for your wife. Or maybe it is the wife on that account. Thank you. I really enjoy your channels and learn something every time. So I'm going to thank Paul for that. Thank you. And now I understand my confusion because there was only 1 viewer sale, but they bought 3 things. So technically, I guess that's 3 sales. But Teddy Ruxpin, I bought this at a sale, or I think I bought these, and I bought this, and it was an awesome sale, and I just bundled the heck out of everything together. But these were sitting there as well. 3 Teddy Ruxpin books, good condition, with the cassettes. And those sold for $21.80. And they also got the Teddy Ruxpin that's been here for quite a while. I bought this guy. I might have bought this one in Arizona. I can't remember. This one sold for right around $45 for this Teddy Ruxpin. He's been sitting in different places, but he's back there for now. And so he got both of these together with the caboodles bag. And that's why I had it all screwed up. So thank you very much, Paul. Y'all, I am sweating in here. It is so hot. It's not just because I know I've ruffled some feathers out there. Listen, it is not my intent to do that. It is, I'm an observer. I have political opinions. I have religious opinions. I try not to get into depth in those in here because I know there's people on both sides of the aisle, nowhere near the aisle, in between the aisle, on the bottom side of the basement that have all kinds of different opinions, and so do I. So it's not my intent, let's put it that way. But it is interesting to see, you know, the macro changes that are taking place and then the micro reactions to the macro changes. It's important. And seeing around the corners is a big part of this game. So it's why I continue to bring these topics that a lot of people won't. At least they won't do it in a nonpartisan way, if you will. And let's face it, y'all, if we're honest with ourselves, our political ideologies, if they... How do I say this without making some folks mad? It's interesting to me to see somebody's political opinions that they hold when their guy or their party goes in a different direction, they go with it, and vice versa. And that goes for both parties. And it happens all the time. Things that, you know, this side used to argue for were, you know, sacrosanct, and then this side used to argue against. And then when you start to see these people jumping over aisles, and then all of a sudden the same people who argued this now argue against it. That goes both parties. It goes both ways. That's not to minimize people's political opinions. I know you have them heartfelt. This is about making good decisions based on things that we have very little control of. Very little control. Here's an interesting one. It kind of, I don't know if I want to make this analogy or not, because it may not be completely applicable, but this pair of jeans I've had listed for over 1,400 days. I think I originally listed them at $22.95 or something like that. Never, ever sold. And I relisted them. Lower price. Maybe I mislisted them. Maybe things have changed so much in that time period that they just don't carry the value that they used to, and that's the case. I've got this all messed up. I hope this is the right pair now that I'm pulling it out. It's a pair of 501s. They're not super vintage. They're probably vintage at this point, but they're bigger size right there, double X, and they ended up selling for $18.95. Far lower than I listed, and I have no idea if all this stuff comes into play, but trends of buying have certainly changed because of these things. So it's like whack-a-mole. And I think I was watching a thing the other day. Since 2019, single package deliveries in 2019 for the freight companies coming over on airplanes accounted for 5%. That's the people trying to escape any tariff. And as of the beginning of this year or the end of last year, I think it was last year, the whole of last year, it accounted for 74% of everything. And that's a direct result of trying to avoid these things. I'm not going to pretend to know the outcome of stuff. I simply don't. But I can tell you there's always opportunity and great change. And like I said, this is whack-a-mole. There's unintended consequences. Just like the Affordable Care Act, you could really look back, and that's when the gig economy started to just blow up. There was probably other things that influenced it as well. But people try, you know, there's always unintended consequences. Let's just put it that way. But I certainly can say, even though I can't predict the future, that there's probably going to be a lot of opportunity. Keep your ear to the ground, if you will, and figure out where that is. This is a Tommy Armour putter. I hope I get this the right putter. I just listed this one. And I think I paid 20. I can't remember what I paid for this one. I think I paid 20 for it. And it sold. I listed it for 100. I did take an offer. And so I sold it for $90. Sweet grip, by the way, plus shipping. Speaking of old listings, this bin is where listings go to die. This one I did not relist, but it has been listed for a long time. It's GK Elite Leotard. This is probably Reagan's at one point. Bell Ariel, Smart Girl Power. I don't know. Sold on 30% off. I took some of my oldest listings, put it back on a 30% off sale. This one sold $38.50 plus shipping. Been in that bin probably for years. All right, here we go. Another 30% off sale. These are, Nancy Drew can be good sellers, and especially some of the older blue copies. But these just weren't in great shape. They are old, but not in great shape. Carolyn Keene. You ever find the ones that don't say Nancy Drew by her? Those are good too. But I had to sell that on 30% off. They've been sitting around a long time. Got $35 for them though, plus shipping. Reagan just saw her Leo in here that's sold.
It's either mine or we had a double.
Yeah, it's been listed for years. For years. Hey, let me do this before we talk about that. Check this out. Land of Enchantment. Steve sent us this one. Love this one. I like the color so much I might find a place. I don't know, maybe up there or something.
Oh, I've never seen that before.
Isn't that neat?
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. So thank you to Mountain Man Picks. My favorite design, he says. Yeah, mine too. All right, little announcement here. And we're just doing it on, I don't know, I might put this on Instagram or something. Go ahead and show it to him. Check this out. I've been inspired by Harry Tornado's Ridiculous Soap. And these, we're doing, I'll tell you what, before I let Reagan talk here, we're doing a little bit of a collaboration. I'm hoping to break even on this. I want Reagan to make some money. I want the man who makes, well, he didn't make the honey. The bees make the honey. But all of this honey is coming from bees that sting Reagan. Reagan is not happy with those bees.
I don't like bees at all, but...
But we figured we'd make them friends by doing this. All the bees around here are making this honey, and it's just awesome. So we thought we would help his small business out. They can only produce so much, so we only got 11 bottles for now. That's all we have. We had 12, but we did an initial auction on one of them before we had the stickers. Plus, Reagan probably feels uncomfortable here. I've been editing a video. I have my headphones in because I'm just talking, but keeping it on her. So I'll explain this, and then I'll let her give the little promo. These, we're trying to do a few things. Like I said, I'm trying to break even on this. We're going to hopefully help his business out. It's going to be fun. And also Just Be Crafting. She's making the labels for these. It may change in iterations a little bit here and there. And we may have a different bottle. And we may do some adaptation depending on how this goes. And Reagan's going to make some money. And we would also like to make this part of our regimen on our merch, where we're donating to different charities through you guys. We do our own as well. But it's just something we'd like to do. Now, this is not going to be found. Reagan's not going to be able to say, don't forget to get your sticker at CommonwealthPicker.com. We're not putting these over there. There's such a limited quantity. I'm going to put them in one of our marketplaces. We're going to put them, buy it now, in Dave's Kitchen Marketplace. Over there, one of the dipped at 8. And so they'll be over there. There's only 11. We'll get more as the bees get busy. And hopefully, we'll see how much he can produce. And then we will occasionally auction them off as well on Dipped It as well. So Reagan can't say. Don't forget to get your sticker.
Well,
Commonwealth picker.
don't forget to get your sticker.
Yeah,
but
don't forget to
don't
get
forget
that
to get your
anyways.
honey.
Check it out. Should we show them a little better? I put these on, so if you get one with a wrinkled sticker, it's my fault.
I haven't tried them yet. But...
Reagan is going to go upstairs and put the stickers on the rest, see if she can do a better job than me. And we're going to continue to do this. So no pressure to do anything, but we are going to have a portion of each sale, as we always do, go to one of the kids' charities. We haven't talked about it. It would probably be Compassion. Oh, you know what? Since it's bees, maybe we'll do the animal shelter for these. So, what do you think? You want to go to the animal shelter? You've been a good boy lately. He's been okay. Not too bad. At any rate, was that your phone or mine? Something buzzed.
It was me. I said,
Oh, okay. I'm like, what is that? I got these headphones in. I'm like, I don't hear a buzz. Any rate, you can still say your line, but dkmkt.com, daveskitchenmarketplace.com is where you can find those. We appreciate you.
Bye, and don't forget to get your stickers at commonwealthpicker.com.
Almost forgot this vintage, made in the USA, polo shirt. It's O'Doul's non-alcoholic brewed. It have a little fading right there, but it's still sold. Took forever. We have not been selling much clothing lately because we have not been listing it. $11.36 plus shipping. All right, like I said, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there, they just can't put away their political lens for a few minutes. I hope you know that it's not my intent. And I'm not here to rail against either side. And we all have our opinions. But I just think it's so important that we look. Because this is be fully implemented, although it's been partially implemented in certain places already. It's being fully implemented in 2027. Unless there's some legislation that comes along, you know, like I said, all whack-a-mole stuff. So who knows? But I definitely think it's important to pay attention to what's going on. And no matter what your political ideology is, we tend to want to act in our own best interest regardless. And I hope you guys do that as well. Thank y'all for watching me. Thank you for those of you who have not turned me off already. I appreciate that. And I can't wait to see you next time.